What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode. I am Chris Fresh. Tonight, we are going to be talking about something that is so crucial to so many businesses. A lot of you know that I work with plumbers, service plumbing companies, and this is something that comes up all the time, and that is your price book. This is the Fresh Experience, and I'm telling you, we're going to get into it because this is something that really matters. It's going to affect really everything that revolves around how you operate, the way you schedule, the way that you price things, obviously, but also the way that you price things in relationship to the options that your technicians give. I get that we all offer a product service, but what I mean by that is who is dealing with the end user, the consumer. You might work in retail, you might work in sales, you might be a service plumber. That's who I predominantly work with in that industry. A lot of service plumbers watch this show. A lot of service owners watch this show as it relates to plumbing, maybe HVAC, something related or close, or maybe just another trade. But what do you do, and do you deal with the end user? Because if you deal with the end user, some of these points right here, they're not just going to make sense. They're going to connect some dots for you, because one of the things that I believe in is mindset is everything. It really affects how you do it. Now, we talk about attitude being everything as well, but mindset is what drives that attitude. Mindset is what positions you mentally and how you're going to approach things, how you're going to look at things, how you're going to view things, how you're going to receive things. And so your mindset matters. It totally matters. And so you got to understand these things, because as you're dealing with a consumer, you're dealing with a customer, might have a different mindset based on different experiences, poor information, good information, bad information, whatever it is, maybe good experiences with you, with someone else. It's going to affect the way that they receive what you have to say, what they receive, what you have to offer them, and how you offer it, and at what price you offer. It's all going to matter. It's all going to matter. We're going to talk about these three things tonight. I'm pulling these articles out and I'm reading some things about industry standard practice, whether it be plumbing or it be restaurant or whatever. And I'm learning more and more and more about how we can apply these things to our own everyday lives, our own everyday business. This particular article was really written generically, meaning it was written for everybody. And I'm just going to read right here how they start off. They say the good news is you have a great deal of flexibility in how you set your prices, meaning basically do it however you want, honestly. But there's some good ways and some bad ways. And it says the bad news is there's no surefire formula-based approach you could pull off the shelf and apply in your business. And then it says pricing services is more difficult than pricing products, because you can often pinpoint the cost of making a physical product, but it's more subjective to calculate the worth of your counsel, your staff's expertise, and the value of your time when providing a service. So it says you can, however, use some of the same underlying pricing guidelines to figure out your cost and operating expenses, plus your target profit, and setting your prices for service. Bottom line, here's the deal. You, no matter what you do, can use the same principles and guidelines that all the other businesses use. We say that on the show all the time. Look, it's not rocket science. It is not easy, but it is not rocket science. You simply go look and see what works somewhere else. You find out how it's different in your industry or your trade, and then you make the tweaks and you make it your own and you apply it. Pricing your services comes down to so many different things. I understand that, but at the same time, there's ways we can take some general guidelines and simplify this. It doesn't need to be so difficult. Look, a lot of times people say, what in the general rule of thumb, how do you price things? And I would say, look, if I'm selling these little model airplanes, Southwest model airplane, if I drive a Lamborghini, or if I buy a bigger warehouse than I'm supposed to, or I buy 5 extra delivery trucks than I was supposed to for these, I'm still going to consider the price of this widget, of this item, of this toy, of this gadget based on what it costs to make it. It's called cost of goods and services. COGS is what they would call it in the business world, where they would put it in a book or some professor would teach it. But bottom line is how much money did it cost me to make that thing? Okay. And so when I look at marketing, I look at it like a vending machine is me putting dollars in and it's spitting out dollars back. And so the two kind of go hand in hand, right? Because if this costs me $2 to make, and then it costs me $2 to get someone to buy this $2 item, I have to consider all of that when I'm making a profit, or whether I'm making and covering my costs on this item, right? I have to consider all these things. And that's where it gets a little bit complicated, but at the same time, we can simplify it. And we're going to look into how we can do that. So there's 3 factors that we're going to cover tonight on pricing that we can really use. First one they call the cost plus pricing. Cost plus pricing. We're going to dive into this a little bit here. It says this standard method of pricing is businesses seek to first determine the cost of make a product, or in this case, providing a service, and then add an additional amount to represent the desired profit. To determine the cost, you need to figure out direct costs, indirect costs, and fixed costs, what the cost plus approach, the thing to remember is that if you're paying someone $11 an hour, you may think you should charge an $11 an hour for the service they provide, but you have to factor in all your costs. Those costs include a portion of your rent, utilities, administration costs, and other general overhead costs. When I make a deal to sell a service, he says, I make sure to cover all my costs. Here's how I factor it in. There are things that go into this. There is a reality that in wholesale in the plumbing business and all the way down to the basic form of math essentially is this. You take 50 cents of your time, money, leverage, assets, and everything that you have to offer the world, and you take it into the community and you exchange it for $1. That's wholesale. That would be the kind of the pricing that you might give someone if they were to book out. It's like the Costco model, right? It's when you buy the whole pallet. But you'll notice here that there's so many situations where we go into a store like a convenience store and the pricing is extremely far from this idea of a Costco model. Just know this, there's a convenience store, there's a grocery store, and there's a Costco. All three charging 3 different amounts for each item. All of those industries are billion-dollar industries. Okay, you can make money at wholesale, not a la carte style though. You can't allow people to come all the way into your store and buy 1 gallon of milk and get the pallet price. It doesn't work like that. But there is a reality that if you're going to go buy a keg of Gatorade, yeah, we'll give you a discount. It says when I make a deal to sell a service, I make sure to cover all the costs. Look, this stuff, this is it. This is straight from, like, this is what they do. This is business 101. This isn't complicated. It's just hard because there's emotion that gets involved when we provide a product or service. Look, if you guys would grasp this, it's not about making millions off one. It's about making millions off millions. Meaning, if you're going to go do a business and you want to be able to have something sustainable, then you have to spread that out. You can't go in and make $3,000 on a water heater. I know people will say yes to it. I know some people will say no to it. And I know that you can do it. But at the same time, that lack of conversion, I always say the no's cost you more than the discounts. This business is about momentum. This business is about consistency. And it's about being able to kind of calm the storms, if you will. We all know how that stuff comes in all at once. It's like that in retail. It's like that in sales. It's like that in service plumbing. It's like that. And we got to be able to sustain that. And your price book is going to be something that makes or breaks that ability, the culture for your team to be able to do that. Here's the second one. Now, before I get too far into this second one, I want to make sure you guys don't shut me out or think that I'm going off on a tangent. I never, ever, ever price my prices based on what other people are pricing. If someone wants to do $49 drains, they can go do $49 drains. If somebody wants to undersell their services or undersell their product, they can do that. I'm going to catch up with them, but I want to know what's out there. And the second point is this, is you got to know your competitors' pricing in some fashion or some way. You don't need to know what each and every one of them is charging, but you need to have a pulse on the market. You need to have some sort of idea of what's going on in your world, what's going on in your community, what's going on in your situation. It says you need to be aware of what competitors are charging for similar services in the marketplace. This information could come from different methods, different varieties. It goes on to list a few. Some I agree with, some I don't. And then it says, I don't think it's a good idea for any entrepreneur to compete on price if you can avoid it. You need to compete on service. That's what he says. That's what I say. Ambiance and other factors that set you apart. We call it having a competitive edge. What makes you different? Not only why would someone do business with you, but why would they continue to do business with you? People always ask me all the time if I believe in on-call. I do not. I have too many examples of too many successful companies with too many very happy client bases that doesn't do on-call. And what always turns out to be true is this, very much, every time. They don't do on-call, and then they have that one customer that uses their competitor because they don't do on-call, and then it just confirms for the customer that they want to continue doing business with that original, our client, because they provide such a great service. And basically what I'm saying is that when your client uses you because they believe in you, they're going to have a great experience. When they go use your competitor and the competitor proves to them that you are better, you get what I'm saying? It just makes it that much sweeter and you can then continue to do business with them. I've seen it way too many times. Competitors' pricing makes a big difference in all of this. It's absolutely something that you should consider. It's something that you should be aware of. It is not something that you use as a pricing strategy. It's not like, well, he charges this, so I'm going to charge that. This isn't Price is Right. We're not bidding $1. We're not $1 over everyone else. Number 3, perceive value to the customer. It's like this. If the entire used car market almost works in this fashion, it's perceived value to the customer. What we don't understand is the customer is actually the wholesaler that is buying the cars that are then selling them back to us at retail. But that is what then sets the pricing and the stage, if you will, for what the car industry does in pricing. I worked in the car industry a long time ago, and what they talk about here is this perceived value to the customer. And when you're thinking about that as it relates to your trade, if you're a service plumber, as that relates to going into a home, that perceived value can be affected by the way that you present your business, by the way you position your business, and by the way you present yourself as an individual. What I mean by this is that. What I mean by that is this. I said, you can't, we need like a bloopers. Who wants to see a bloopers edition one day? When your business is positioned correctly, you have the right branding, you have the right look, your uniforms. When you're positioned on the internet correctly, you have reviews, you look great online, your website looks good, it matches the branding, it matches the look of maybe even the vans exactly to as close to a T as possible. I mean, you can get these things so branded, so they call brand congruency is what they call it in marketing, and you can do that with your brand. And then on top of that, you put yourself in a position with reviews, with messaging, with a story that sets you apart from your competitors. And then your guys, or you're the guy, you show up and then you look the part. When you show up, you look professional. You do your research. You know the neighborhood. You know the market. You know the home. You know the things that you're going to be offering the schools in that neighborhood. And you know your product. You basically can alter the perceived value. Look, you can get the worst of someone or you can get the best of someone. And that's a range. Just like that, there's a range when it comes to perceived value. First, there's the industry. Then there's the brand. Then there's the individual. This is what they had to say. This is where a lot of subjectivity comes in when setting a price for service. When you have a product, you may decide to use keystone pricing, which generally takes the wholesale cost and doubles it to come up with a price to charge and account for your profit. With a service, it says you can't necessarily do that. However, I know how important that is to be able to do that, and we kind of engineered the whole thing and found a way to do that. The price book does it, the calculator does it for you, and our coaching program teaches you really how to take that thing to the next level. But that's what we had to do for the industry because the plumbing industry's never done it. I don't know why. And then it says to your customer, the most important factor is determining how much they are willing to pay for a service. May not be how much time you spent providing the service. Catch that. Has nothing to do with the amount of time. That's why I don't believe in hourly rates or hourly things to figure out how much to charge, because it ain't got nothing to do with that. And none of you want anything for it. You don't want it to do anything to do with that. How many calls do you get? How many complaints do you get where you're like, man, how much do you guys charge per hour? And then you tell them, or they calculate it on their own. They're like, you charge me $300 an hour. The guy went to his truck and smoked a cigarette. Did I pay for that? And then the guy had to go to the supply shop twice. Did I pay for that? Can I do it like that? It has nothing to do with that. But ultimately, what the perceived value of that service and your expenses to them, I say it's how big of a problem you solve. That's what people are paying for. The solution. The reality is, though, this is important. This is so important. Like, this is something that will absolutely be like, if you hire a bunch of people and they're skilled and they're gifted and your price book's all out of whack, it's going to be a lot harder for them to convert. It's going to be a lot harder for them to help the customer out. People say, hey, Chris, are you one of those coaches that just teaches us to raise the price book? No, what I do is I teach you to take every single thing you have in your business, put it on the chopping block. Let's take a look at it. First, let's figure out where you're trying to go with your life, with your business, what's your desire, what do you want to achieve, what do you want to have, and then what do you have now? Does that fit into the life that you're trying to create? And if it doesn't, we got to make some tweaks. Sometimes we got to raise the price, sometimes we got to lower the price. Sometimes we got to keep the name, sometimes we got to change the name. Sometimes we got to keep the brand, sometimes we got to change the brand. I don't decide that. You decide that. You decide that by telling me where you want to go, just like your price book. You decide whether or not the customer says no or yes. They already got the problem. I will say this. Costco's onto something. When I said that earlier, I said convenience stores, I said grocery stores, and I said Costco, and I said they're all billion-dollar industries. What's interesting about that statement, though, hopefully some of you caught that, is that convenience stores is a mix of companies. Grocery stores is a mix of companies. Costco is Costco. There's a lot of money to be made at wholesale. You cannot walk around doing things a la carte at wholesale. So what you have to get good at is solving bigger problems. When you solve bigger problems, when you have bigger solutions, then it genuinely just creates more revenue because it is valued, it is built in, it's the way that society works. And so that's really the art of the whole thing, is finding ways to build real, true value in what you offer. We can get it, we can do it. I think I just covered in the podcast, you got to work hard and you got to build the right team. Okay, that's it. That's what you got to do. Work hard, build the right team. Get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. That's most of life's problems right there. Look, remember, guys, I love you. Serve your comedians and everything, not just plumbing. Have a great night.
Fresh.
Thanks for watching The Fresh Experience. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our podcast, The Fresh Approach, on Google, Apple, and your favorite podcast channel.